High Velocity Wrestling is a professional wrestling promotion based in Western North Carolina. HVW's events provide a family atmosphere featuring old school pro wrestling with a modern day flair, giving a little something for everyone. Hey, what is up? Welcome to the HVW Podcast, the official podcast for High Velocity Wrestling. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and we're here to give you the latest news and rumors surrounding the best pro wrestling promotion in the Carolinas, as well as exclusive interviews that you will only find here. Please remember to visit us online at highvelocitywrestling.com and follow us on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The links are available in the episode's description. This is episode number 11, and that's right, folks, we're back. We're still on lockdown, still on self-quarantine, still weathering the storm. It's been a month of Sundays, it seems like, since this thing started, but we're still trying to press ahead. The COVID-19 pandemic is still going strong, unfortunately for all of us, but we're all in this thing together, folks. As they say, at least we're trying to move forward as we always do, especially here in this company. You guys know we've been keeping this show running this whole time. And we've had some fun. We've had some great feedback, had some great comments from you, the fans, and from the talent as well. And folks, we're just trying to entertain and we're just trying to inform as well. And hopefully we are succeeding in both of those objectives. We hope to continue our run of shows here and keep going, especially today, because our guest is highly controversial. She's very outspoken and she's got a lot of things to say. She's never at a loss for words, folks, so be forewarned. This will probably not be for the faint of heart. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kaitlyn Marie. Kaitlyn, welcome to the show.
Oh, the pleasure is all yours.
So glad you could join us today. We do appreciate it. Hope I gave you a proper introduction. We would like to do respect to everybody we have here on the show. So I like to build the men and women of HVW up, so hopefully that was to your liking.
It was doable. It was passable. I mean, we could do better, but we'll work on it for next time.
Well, that works. The next time we'll have you on, I promise you it'll be more up to your standard there. So that we'll definitely do better. Before we get into it, I've been asking this question to kick off every interview since the COVID-19 thing has happened. I'm going to ask you the same question. How are you dealing with this situation? How is it affecting you on a personal level, business level? What are you doing to sort of get through this whole thing right now?
I mean, personally, it's affecting the wrestling, obviously, as we aren't able to go out and wrestle, but that's just giving me more time to plot, to work out, to get in better shape, to think of ways to continue to take over all the women's divisions at every company, including HVW. So really, it's, if anything, it's just been helping me get my game up and get ready to get back in action.
I just mentioned the word objectives earlier, but it sounds like you've definitely got an objective at hand. You've got a mission, so to speak. And I mean, that I would have to say that makes you more dangerous than ever before.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a thinker. I have a master's degree, so I'm always planning and being proactive. So again, this time has been nothing but an opportunity to continue planning, to continue accomplishing things. So when I come back, I'm better than ever.
Well, it certainly sounds like you've got a lot ahead of you. And I know the fans see that as well. We're going to get into a lot of stuff here today on the show. A lot of your expectations for your career in HVW, the fans' expectations, what we've seen from you thus far. That goes back to the highly controversial part of the show, but we'll get into it as we roll along here, I'm sure. You debuted at First Strike, of course, February 29th. A very impactful debut, to say the least. We will get into that today. No worries about that. But let me get, what was your first impression of HVW as a company on that night? How did you find the company to be when you got behind the curtain?
I mean, the setup was obviously a great setup. It's probably one of the nicer ones I've been to. The only issue I really had upon arrival was just the fact that I felt kind of ignored, to be honest. I walked in there with my friend Hayden, expecting to come and have a great showing and put each other over, and obviously the night didn't end that way, but other than, faculty and staff and everyone else just kind of ignoring me, it went well, I suppose.
Well, I hate you had that impression. Honestly, on our side of it, it kind of felt as though we had made a couple of attempts to sort of say hello and reach out, and maybe felt like you weren't in the mood to talk. And I mean, we've you're not the only one that's giving that kind of feedback. Crucifix is not always the easiest guy to talk to, but Chris is sort of always has his own agenda, has his own routine that he goes through, has his own rituals that he does before his matches. So, he's one of those guys that's maybe not the easiest person to talk to. Not that that's you by any stretch, but, the HVW locker room is a very mixed bag of different personalities, different types of people coming from different parts of the country. So it's a very eclectic mix at any given point. But like we said before, you definitely did make a huge, impactful debut that night. And I keep saying that we're going to get into it. I promise you we'll get into it because I know it's something you're chomping at the bit to talk about, obviously. But I want to turn back the clock if you're down for that. I want to go back and sort of see what the origins of Kaitlyn Marie are. Tell me about when you got started in the sport. We're here in April of 2020 now. How long have you been doing this so far?
Training wise, I started about a year ago. A little over a year ago, but didn't actually start having matches until probably December steadily.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that does not show. I mean, you are in full command and full control when you're between the ropes. It is, you are very deliberate in your movements. You've got a ton of confidence. I mean, I would never have guessed that you started sort of going full time in December, January of this year. That's kind of a shock to me, to be honest with you.
I mean, that's not surprising that you would think that. I mean, when you have the confidence I have in your movement and your body and your ability, that's obviously going to transcend into the ring, unlike other people in HVW who come in scared of their opponents and look scared and compete scared. I know who I am. I know my skill set, and my job is to get out there and show that.
Well, we mentioned confidence. Tell me where that confidence comes from. Does that come from you? Does it come from your training? Is it a mix of both, or how do you attribute that?
I mean, it's basically just a reflection of my entire life. I grew up with a really strong Hispanic mother. I'm a strong Hispanic woman, and I had strong trainers to lead me on the way. So when it came time for me to perform, I had no reason not to be.
So who did your training?
I mean, our head trainer obviously is the number one, Mr. George South. Mm-hmm. And I've also been trained by Caleb Conley, Jake Manning, Zane Riley, James Drake, all people who are extremely confident, extremely talented people in the ring.
George South is he's definitely a legend in this sport for sure. I was with a company actually 20 years ago, and we had him and several of his guys at the time. It was Exodus Wrestling. I don't even know if he still runs that or not. But we had him up. Him and his gang would come up. We ran every Saturday. We probably had him up 3 out of 4 shows per month. And he was always locker room leader. He was always a great guy to be around, a veteran. Wasn't afraid to give his input if he was asked. He didn't step on anyone's toes, but he was always he was always open and honest. If you asked him, hey, man, what did you think of so-and-so? He would sometimes be brutally honest with you. Did you find that to be sort of the best training? Of course, at the time, I'm sure you didn't really know what the training methods were at the time. But when you said you trained with others, I guess after George and maybe before, during, or whatever, in terms of his style, did you find his style to be better for you personally, or in terms of him being more direct with you?
Oh, absolutely. George South is a honest man, and that is one thing you can never take away from him, just like I am, sometimes brutally. But he will always call you out when you're doing something wrong, but he's also the first to tell you that you're doing something right. So having someone who is such a legend and such a veteran in the business keep it honest with you and push you beyond what you think you can do, that's the kind of trainer you should be having.
What was his opinion of you? Is because I'm curious as you were going through this. What did he think of you in terms of where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do in the sport?
Oh, George, absolutely. Anytime you come in, you're a clean slate. Anything you want to do, you can accomplish. There aren't limits, there aren't barriers, there aren't walls that you can't get over. You tell him where you want to go, and he'll get you there as long as you're willing to learn, to put in the work, and to listen. And that's exactly what I feel like I've done with him.
So tell me about the process in terms of the training. And you don't have to be specific just to George, but I'm just curious, the training in general. When you first, and we've all had that instance of hitting that mat for the first time. And I can tell you that 20 some odd years ago, the first time I hit that mat, I had the wind knocked out of me. I saw stars. I said, my God, I had no idea it was going to hurt this much. I mean, do you recall your first time getting in the ring, and what was your takeaway from that first time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm obviously looking at me, not your stereotypical athlete. So I didn't go in there with expectations of being able to pick things up in a blink of an eye. So my first bump, I felt it, maybe not as much as others since I do have quite a bit of padding around me. But I felt it, and I knew the next week I had a stiff neck, 100% sure I had whiplash, but I'm someone who, like, the pain drives me. So I knew if I'm in pain, that means I'm doing something right. And as the weeks came on, my bumps got better, I got better, was more aware of the ring and being in the ring. So it definitely was difficult, but when you stick with it, it shows the difference of people who want it and people who don't.
Did you have, did any of the experience give you any doubts at all? Did you ever have a moment of saying, what was I thinking? You know, is this really for me, or were you just full throttle, full steam ahead?
I mean, I myself at this point, I was pretty confident going into it. I mean, again, obviously I went into it a little more hesitant because I know I'm not your stereotypical female athlete or athlete in general, to be honest. I know I'm not in the best cardio shape. I know I'm not probably the most friendly and outgoing person, but I know that I'm someone who puts in the work. And I know that if I stuck with it and if I kept up doing what I was doing, that I was going to make it. So I had no doubts, but I was aware of where my limitations were.
Well, you know, you mentioned cardio, and that's a lot of people get into this, and we've seen the muscle heads over the years, and guys and even women who have incredible bodies, and they are chiseled out of granite, and they can't breathe. They're gassed after 10 minutes, and 5 minutes, sometimes sooner than that. And because they just did not anticipate the cardio that you have to have, the cardio shift that you have to be in order to be successful between the ropes. You mentioned your body type versus some others in your division. But, you know, the biggest hero I've ever had, maybe, I don't know about in life. Well, maybe he's right up there, Dusty Rhodes. I mean, and Ric Flair would tell you all day long that Dusty could go for an hour, and after 40 minutes, Rick's trying to get his breath, and he looks at Dusty's just fine. He's not even breathing hard, and he's like, I never could figure out how he did it. So, you know, to your point, yes, is it about your body? Yeah, and but at the same time, if you don't have cardio, you're not going to make it. We've heard people before talk about having that next gear, having that gear where, you know, let's say you're in the midst of a match and it's a brutal one, or it's taken longer than expected for you, or what have you. I mean, do you have that gear is what I'm asking. And I'm sure you do, but like, when do you discover that gear? When does it kick in for you in terms of, okay, I got to get back up and I got to keep pushing forward?
Me personally, I don't feel like I need to go into that gear as often as others just because of how dominant I am. I get needing more energy, or if you're not in great cardio, but if you're in control of your match, there isn't typically a need to go into that next gear. So I'm probably not using it as often as others, but I would definitely say if it came to a point where I did need it, I know I refuse to be held down. I know I refuse to give up. So if I need to, it's there, but I don't feel like with the level of competition I've had, it's been very necessary.
I mean, you definitely are, and we've said this before already so far here today, but you're very dominant in the ring. I mean, you're a presence, you take charge, you're very much in command. I mean, it kind of feels like the minute you get in there, you are a ring general, and that's basically who you are. Did that come naturally to you when you started going about the business of Kaitlyn Marie, about who you are? And fans use the words personality, and I get where they're coming from, because a lot of it is who you are on camera and that kind of thing. So when you're sitting back, sort of developing who you're going to be in this crazy sport that we have, did you know that that's the direction you were going to take it? Were you already very convinced that, okay, this is the kind of person I have to be between the ropes?
I feel like for me, it was pretty natural to be a ring general. I mean, I've always been a leader. I've never been a follower. And realistically, look at me and look at the girls I'm competing against. How much sense would it make for me to lay down and let these girls walk all over me. So for me to be in that ring and be in control is just natural. It just makes the most sense. And it's something that probably will never change.
Well, like we said, you definitely do stand out, and you definitely do take charge when you're in the ring. I'm curious about what led you to this. You're still very new in this business. You're still sort of, I guess, finding your way, so to speak. I mean, you've already accomplished a lot, obviously, but there's still a long road ahead for you if you want to spend any considerable amount of time in this business. It takes a while to get to really where you really want to be. What led you to this? Were you a fan of this growing up, or how did you first get involved with this?
Well, absolutely. I grew up watching wrestling. I have two brothers, and if anything, I was the one making them watch it with me. It was something I watched. I would say I probably got into it more during the Trish Lita, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock era. So I'm not as familiar, I would say, with times before that, but I watched it from, I'd say, elementary school through now. Again, with me watching it on TV, I didn't see people who looked like me, so it was never something I thought was in my realm of possibilities. But I think as I got older, I got more confident. I mean, I've accomplished everything else I've wanted to do in life, including graduating college, going on to get my master's, having a successful job, basically having a successful life. So why not go after the one thing that I didn't think I could do? Because at this point, a lot of the things I accomplished in life, I didn't think I could do. And I knew if it was something I was going to try, it was something I was going to have to do now instead of waiting any longer.
What a leap that is. What a huge leap that is to go from what a lot of people would consider to be normal, ordinary. Not that getting a master's is ordinary. Don't get me wrong, but like sort of a normal life, I guess, so to speak. To go from that to say, I'm going to get in a 20 by 20 and I'm going to fall down a whole bunch and I'm going to try not to get killed and let's see if I can do this. How did you make that jump from, like you said, deciding, okay, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot? What got you to that point?
I think I just realized at that point, it was the only thing in my life I hadn't accomplished. I mean, when I started training, I was still in grad school and I was working a full-time job, a part-time job, training 3 days a week and trying to do this, having matches and stuff. So it definitely wasn't easy, but I knew it was something I've always wanted to try. I didn't necessarily know where it was going to go, if it was going to become a career opportunity or if it was just something I do for fun. And I think as soon as I stepped in the ring and saw how powerful I was and saw how much potential I had, I knew it was something I had to give a fair shot, and that's what I've been doing.
So you said you grew up with two brothers. Where are you in terms of age with your two brothers?
They're both older than me, I think.
Oh, wow. So did you grow up a tomboy with them? Was it like you were
absolutely
having to defend yourself and that kind of thing?
Oh, all we did was fight, wrestle.
Right.
I mean, I'm Hispanic again, so we have huge families, lots of cousins, and that's always what we do. Wrestle, go outside, play in the dirt, get dirty. I was never your typical girly girl. I was always that, let's get down and dirty, let's have a good time.
Wow. So you grew up, you sort of grew up defending yourself and scrapping, as they say, and trying to, I guess just stand up for yourself. You kind of didn't have a choice.
Oh, absolutely.
So we were talking, you mentioned Trish and Lita, and this is something I was hoping you were going to open the door on because it's such a huge topic for women's wrestling in 2020. If not for, and don't get me wrong, there were a lot of women contributing to the business before Trish and Lita. It's not like women's wrestling started with them. There's a whole chain of talents through the years who, back in the early days of Mildred Burke, Mae Young, and just Fabulous Moolah, of course, love her, hate her, despite controversy or whatever, pioneers in the business. So there was a chain and a huge name, laundry list of names of people who came up before Trish and Lita, obviously. So all due respect to those ladies and what they contributed to the business. But I'm with you on your sentiment when it came to Trish and Lita because, I grew up a Jim Crockett fan. I loved Mid-Atlantic. I loved NWA. I'm an old school guy all the way. And I was one of those guys during the Attitude Era. And I'm telling you, there was a room, and I've told this story a bunch, so fans probably get tired of hearing it by now. But I would be in a room full of guys on Monday nights. We'd be flipping the TV back and forth between Raw and Nitro. And every time the women showed up on Raw and the clothes came off and it's lingerie match, it's gravy butt match, it's mud match, we turned the channel back to Nitro. Because we're all there going, dude, this again, just turn it back. Like we were legit wrestling fans. We weren't there for a peep show. So I give Trish and Lita huge credit for not wanting to be those women anymore. And they both started out that way, really, but they didn't want to end that way. So I gave huge props to them. As someone who is in this, if not for Trish and Lita, do you think that you still would have wanted to give this a shot, or did those two ladies sort of set the bar for you and set the standard to where you said, I have to go do this?
I mean, first and foremost, Trish Stratus is a goddess and the number one woman in my eyes forever. But they definitely, like you said, I mean, it was a hit or miss. I mean, obviously growing up watching bra and panty matches and stuff wasn't like, oh, that's my goal in life. But I think you said by the end of it, you know, these women are having some of the most intense, hard-hitting matches. They showed that you can, be pretty, but you can get in the ring and wrestle just like any man out there. And even their matches against men, you know, they held their own. So I think they definitely were a step in the right direction. I feel like there is still a lot of room to work in women's wrestling, period. A lot of room to grow, because I still feel like there are those stereotypes. I mean, even in the indie scene, I feel like if you're a pretty face and wearing small gear, you're probably going to get booked compared to people who are putting in that work and who may not be your stereotypical model. So I feel like there's still a need to focus on the athlete and to focus on the performer rather than focus on appearance. But again, I do think they definitely were that opening door saying we can be more than just a face.
Booty shorts. I mean, that's bottom line. Booty shorts, as far as the eye can see. WWE, I'll call them out. WWE still does it. I don't think AEW does it as much. I don't know what Impact is doing much these days, but WWE is a big offender of that. And you're right, image, how pretty is somebody, and that company is obsessed with how pretty you are. I mean, Jim Ross, best in the business, gets forced out because they wanted to go younger. I'm like, okay, you take the best guy in the business. That's another topic for another day. But, go younger, go prettier. But booty shorts, as far as the eye can see, it's just everywhere you look. And that's the one thing I can tell you for sure. We didn't want anything to do with that in HVW. That's not what we wanted. That's why that when our eyes came to you, we said, okay, look at her. She makes a statement. Just your photo makes a statement, and that's to your credit. And it's not just because she doesn't look like the typical lady wrestler, but the intensity in your eyes, that jumps off the page. Absolutely. And the fans see that. And I'm proud of our women's division. I really feel like that we've got some of the best in the business right now, and you are definitely one of those people. And I've seen what you're talking about in terms of, the less you wear, the more you get booked. But the problem with that, and you know this firsthand, I'm sure, how many times have you been behind the curtain or been in the ring with one of these said ladies, and halfway through the match in your head you're going, oh my God, this is a train wreck. Or maybe been behind the curtain watching the monitor and said, oh my God, what's going on? I mean, just because you have the sizzle doesn't necessarily mean you have the steak, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing people aren't noticing. If you're booking these girls, you might book them against someone who's great, but you can only work so much with someone who knows what they're doing. And I mean, it's putting our division in general as women wrestlers down if that's our focus, because they're great to look at, but people go to wrestling shows to see wrestling. And if you can't wrestle, then you're the snack break, you're the concessions break. Like you said, you change your channel when they're on. So you're not helping us look any better just because you're pretty. It makes more sense to book girls who can wrestle. And if they happen to be pretty, great. But if they can put on a match, that should be the first and foremost thing with booking women in general.
Absolutely. And as much grief as our fans catch, as we catch for being the business, and we catch it from all sides. But as much as we catch for that, we don't get enough credit, and our fans don't get enough credit because, you turn the channel and there's someone taking their clothes off in the ring, not as much these days, but once upon a time, right? But, and you just sit there and go, freaking wrestling fans, man. But like you said, the majority of those, even the men in the crowd, do they like what they see? Probably. I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, you're like, dude, did I pay to see her twirl around? And come on, man. Like, there's websites for that stuff is my joke, right? So like you said, I paid to see the wrestling. I definitely think that's what they're getting with HVW. And as I said before, you're a huge part of that. So you were talking about Trish and Lita, of course, sort of setting the standard and making their mark in the business. You're talking about people that you didn't see that really look like you. Tell me about the first time you saw Awesome Kong, because that must have been a moment for you, especially where you're just like, oh my God, look at this chick. Tell me about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember, I believe it was Impact was the first time I saw her. And I mean, I'm the first person to recognize talent, like I said, besides appearance. And that was one strong girl. And I remember seeing her and I was like, that's an option. But again, it came down to that she was the only one like her. So growing up, it was, even though I saw she could be that big, powerful woman that I knew I was, it wasn't as common. So it still was a thing of, is this just that one time, the freak show that they have in the back that they use for these spots, or is this going to be a constant trend? And I mean, this is and I'm probably going to get so much slack for saying this, but that's kind of where I come when the whole Nia Jax comparison, I get it. Every time I get booked places, people are always like, you are just the next Nia Jax.
Oh, man.
I hate that. One, I hate being the next anything. I'm the first Kaitlyn Marie. There will never be anyone like me, and I'm like no other. But I also think that my talent isn't categorized into a big girl wrestling standard. I, for one, am not a huge Nia Jax fan. I don't think she's a great wrestler, and I don't think she's extremely somebody that enjoyable to watch. Where I think I want to be one of the best wrestlers, period. Not the best big wrestler, not the best women's wrestler. I want to be the girl who's known for putting in that work and coming out and putting on good matches. So, again, I enjoy, like you said, seeing people like Awesome Kong, because I thought she was a big, strong woman who put on a match. But I hate the comparisons to other big wrestlers.
And I love that you brought that up, because we just saw a week ago today, actually, she was in the ring with Kairi Sane, and I thought she killed her. I mean, she did the buckle bomb, and that girl landed on the second turnbuckle, I think. I mean, I legit thought she's paralyzed. I thought, my God, she's finally killed someone. I hate to, not trying to be comical, but out loud I said, my God, she's finally killed someone. I can't believe. I am stunned beyond words that she continues to be allowed to get into their ring. It is, in my opinion, and I hate to be that guy that calls people out as I sit behind a laptop and do commentary on wrestling shows that I'm not in the ring. So maybe that doesn't make me an expert. But I'm going to say it. She's a liability, and I can't believe she's allowed to get into that ring and do what she does. I am shocked by that, to be honest with you.
The same. I mean, like I said, I think it's obviously always a door opener to see someone like her make it up to a main roster, but I feel like it was such a push to have a face like that on a main roster and to have that for fans to look up to, that the requirements of ability and technicality were kind of pushed to the wayside for her, and I just not a fan.
Yeah, I have to say, and again, I hate to be the guy to call people out, but honestly, I don't think we do that enough in this business. I don't think we call out people enough, and I think it's for fear of sort of, it's like it's the same idea with cops and internal affairs. You don't want to be the cop that rats out other cops. You don't want to be that guy, right? But I think when it comes to, and let's face it, this is life or death. And I've had people raise an eyebrow when I say those words, but I'm telling you right now, when you step into that ring, it is life or death. And it depends on who you're in there with, how serious are they, how lazy are they, do they care, do they not care? That's the difference between you walking out on your own 2 feet and you walking out stretchered, or not walking out, being stretchered out. That's a big difference. So I absolutely think that when people need to be called out, that they're called out, and I think it's important. So we talked about Kong and talked about sort of your impressions of her. She's definitely made a statement. She's still going strong. But like you said, Jax's name gets thrown around. People mention Tamina in that breath, and not that there again, I hate to be that guy, but I think I've heard more great things than I've seen great things from her. And not that she's not capable of great things, But I don't know. Sometimes I watch the matches and I'm like, ugh, I don't know. And maybe I'm not seeing it with the right set of eyes. Maybe that's what's going on. But I do definitely think that the door is wide open. And what makes this business great is that you can have different body types and different personalities and different likes and different tastes. And we try to, as in HVW, give a little something to everybody, which is one of our taglines. It's a little something for everyone. So I think you have to have that difference. You can't be, like we said before in the program started today, you can't be all muscleheads. You can't all be, fitness models. I mean, you can, but at the same time, it's all cookie cutter, and it's not. That's not doing anything for you. Look at guys like Vader, who was not a cookie cutter, muscled up pro wrestler. He was his own body type, his own style, and man, he was as intense can be. Have you taken any of your cues from the men in terms of the guys that you watched over the years? Have you leaned more towards the women wrestlers, or have you also taken cues from the men as well?
I mean, growing up, I was never someone who's like, oh, I'm going to be categorized. If I'm a woman's wrestler, I should be looking at women. Even to this day, when I watch tape, when I watch footage, I'm not someone who looks just at people who look like me. I mean, growing up, I was a huge Eddie Guerrero fan. Is it some things he does will I be doing? 100% not. But is stylistically some of the things I do similar to him? Sure. But I mean, of course, you watch people like Mark Henry, who is known for picking him up and throwing him down. I mean, Big Show, of course, was another big guy who was also still able to get in the ring and put on a show. So, I mean, even to this day, I currently, NXT UK, there's a girl named Piper Niven who wrestled as Viper on the indie scene, who I am a huge fan of and think is a bigger girl who goes in there and wrestles and puts on a show. So I definitely think I do watch a lot of bigger people. Again, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, but I also, a lot of my footage watching, I don't restrict myself. I think I'm as capable as any other wrestler to do anything in that ring and try anything out. So I don't categorize myself, but I've definitely been inspired, I'd say, by a few.
And I think that's a good point. It's well said, honestly, on your part, because you do leave yourself open. And, plus, not for nothing, but when you do focus just on people who wrestle like you or look like you or whatever, same height, same weight, whatever the case may be, you're sort of limiting yourself to how much you're taking in or how much you're absorbing. And you can only get better by wrestling people who are better than you, obviously, but you can also only get better the more you study the game. You won't get worse and you won't lose a step. So the more you study, the more you watch other people, the better it is for your game. And I mean, I can definitely see where you're coming from on that. So you talked about growing up as a fan. Are you still a fan? And I asked this question of, I want to say it was Austin Jordan. I think I asked him and Jake Jacobs both and got two sort of very different answers. But are you still a fan now? And if the answer is yes, can you watch and still enjoy it? Or do you sit there and watch and sort of pick the whole thing apart as you're watching it?
I'm definitely probably the second. I'm someone who now notices things. I think it just depends. I think it depends on the match and who's wrestling. I mean, I feel like it's a harder task now to watch wrestling and have two people or however many so put on a match and me just be so captivated by the work they're doing that I'm not picnicking and looking at stuff that should be changed or that I should, consider. I think it takes a lot. So when it's done well and it's a captivating match, then I'm like, that was a match, and it makes me even further a fan. But I think now, especially now that I'm wrestling, I'm someone who notices everything and picks on everything, and I hate that I'm that person now because it makes it a little bit less enjoyable. But I definitely would say I'm still a fan.
So along those same lines, do you watch with other people? And if so, is it harder for them to enjoy it because they see that you're picking apart? Are you vocal about it, or do you just sort of sit there and nod your head and go, okay, that didn't look good, that looked great? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I am a vocal person. If y'all haven't learned it yet, I am the first person to speak my mind and point things out. I do often throw watch parties for bigger pay-per-views or whatnot, and a lot of the people who come to watch are other wrestlers, so it's something we're all doing together, and we all just give each other that look that's that was either a botch or that was a great move. So thankfully a lot of people I watch it with know and do the same things I do. But again, if I see something that don't look right, I'm the first person to say it.
It's funny because Gary Benfield, of course, HVW owner and promoter, he and I, with my son, went to see the Ring of Honor show that came to Concord a few months back. And we were sitting there, and we did that through every single match. And when it was great, we acknowledged it. When it was rough, we acknowledged it. And it occurred to me halfway through, I can't believe I'm sitting here doing this. This is Ring of Honor. This is not like it's, Larry's Pro Wrestling at the high school gym. This is, these guys, they are on their game. But man, we saw a lot of stuff that night. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to call anybody out. But I talked to him after the show. We were getting ready to leave. And I'm like, dude, were we too hard on some of these? He goes, no, man. He said, you were totally right. And I was totally right. And it's just, as I said before, having a different pair of eyes with which to watch the product. And I've been writing about this stuff for 7 years, been podcasting for 10, been a fan my whole life, been in the business before. I mean, you can still watch and be a fan, but it's almost like, whatever your master's is in, imagining, having your master's in it, but then expected to just look at that certain field without it. Like, you can't really do it. You can't do it without your education. So maybe that's the difference between us and the regular fan. And God bless the regular fan who paid $15 for his or her ticket. They're not educated. They read on Google, they read online, and they think that they've got the whole story, but when in actuality they don't. So maybe that's the biggest difference we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you and Gary talking about always being right. Gary's absolutely not always right, seeing as how he felt the need at First Strike to say I have a sour attitude and I'm not his favorite person. So I want to point that out, that if he has a problem with me, I'd prefer he handle that face to face. But like you were saying, I agree with the fact that it makes it so much harder to watch a show. And I think a lot of it, too, is going to other indie shows. I'm watching other people wrestle who I feel like I am way past and beyond as far as talent and character and personality, and seeing that person get booked compared to yourself is another, I think, thing that makes wrestling, I think, more in the indie scene for me personally, a little bit more difficult to watch, because you're seeing botch or you're seeing moves that just don't make sense or missteps, and you're thinking, if that was me, this would be a better show. So I think that's another aspect of it that makes it a little bit more difficult to enjoy.
Well, you mentioned Gary. You mentioned what he said and everything. So let's go ahead and jump right to this. I feel like we've covered the background. We've covered where you are in terms of who you are as a talent. And I think you've got some we've just barely grazed the surface, to be honest with you. I think you've probably got some great stories to tell. But we've got to tell this story, because I know most of the fans are tuning in to hear this, and they want to hear maybe your side of it, where you're coming from. But as we said before, your debut was at First Strike on February 29th. You were in a tag team match with Hayden Ramsey, who's been a friend of yours for a long time. And you wrestled Lindsey Pike and Sadie Lee Moss in a tag team match. It was a semi-main event of the show that night. And like we said, you dominated. You were in full control. You were in command of the entire match. I mean, I thought Lindsey Pike wasn't going to make it out of there alive. I mean, you were eating her up. I mean, I felt bad for her, to be honest with you. But, you were taking care of your business, and I respect that. I respect any time you take care of business between the ropes. But, we started noticing some friction. We saw it on commentary. I had to point blank ask you, why did you not tag Hayden Ramsey into that match? She tried to get the tag several times, and you weren't having it. What happened?
I mean, like I said before, I am a proactive thinker. I had the match in control. There was no need to come out. See, Hayden Ramsey, being the selfish, self-absorbed person that she is, saw it as me not wanting her to get in the match. No, what it was me handling business so that when it came time to close and finish the job, she would be fresh and ready to do so. But she is so self-absorbed and couldn't see it any other way than her way. And that's why she decided to jump off the side of the ring and make what was supposed to be a tag team match easily a handicap match, basically, which I would have won if not distracted by her needing to exit out in such a dramatic fashion.
Yeah, I mean, for fans that haven't seen it, it's on our YouTube channel, High Velocity Wrestling on YouTube. First Strike, semi-main event. You finally did go for the tag after, call it like we see it, you're refusing to tag out. You finally went for the tag, and Hayden said, because you kept telling Hayden something to the effect of, "I got this," and Hayden said, "Okay, you got this," and she jumped down from the ring apron and was going to leave, and that caused a chain of events that happened that, and again, Kaitlyn, we have to call it like we see it. You actually tapped out to Sadie Lee Moss in the middle of the ring, and it all stemmed from Hayden refusing to take the tag at that time. Needless to say, this thing broke down. I mean, what's going through your head at the moment when that bell rang? What were you thinking?
I mean, more than anything, I was disgusted. Me and Hayden went there as friends. And like I said, it wasn't me not wanting to tag Hayden in. It was me trying to set Hayden up to look the best that she could and go in there and finish the job. And so for her to walk out and leave me high and dry, it's not surprising. She can't finish a match, just like her first match at HVW where it ended in a count out. I, on the other hand, know what I was there for. I was doing my job. I was being the best possible tag team partner. So if she couldn't see that, that was on her.
Well, it's I fumble for words because what happened next was huge. And it's something that we have not seen in HVW before. To bring the fans up to speed, Gary came out, made some announcements about the next show, which unfortunately has not happened because of the COVID-19 situation, as we all know. But you went under the ring, grabbed a crowbar of all things, and ran backstage and attacked Hayden Ramsey. And you've not made any secret about this. You've never denied it. It happened behind the curtain, but you flat out admit that you did it. We know that Hayden's knee was banged up before the show. We were told by Hayden's doctors that she was going to be able to rehab the knee, that she was going to be fine. She did not need surgery. And after you did what you did, Hayden needs surgery, and it's happening actually this week. I mean, I don't, honestly, all due respect, I don't know how you can be happy with that. I mean, you put someone's livelihood in jeopardy. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, at the end of the day, if you guys are looking for an apology, you can look elsewhere. I made a decision in a moment that needed to be made. I walked, like I told you guys, when I walked into HVW, did anyone acknowledge me? No, everyone acknowledged Hayden. Hayden was your star. When you guys went to book your first show, did you guys even consider me? No, you considered Hayden. So when it came down to make a decision, I learned from the best from Ric Flair when he says to be the man, you got to beat the man. And honey, there are no rules when that match is over. So yeah, I absolutely went in the back and took her knee out. If anything, I'm helping you guys because she was wasting time, wasting space, and couldn't finish a match. So do I apologize for what I did? Nope. I just moved a piece out of the way so that I can continue my climb to the top of the women's division.
Well, as we said, Hayden is she's in rough shape. She is going to have surgery. She swears that she's going to be back. She's going to rehab this thing after the surgery's over, and she's going to get back to full strength. We don't know how long the prognosis before the surgery was a year, so we're looking at least 12 months before she's back in the ring. We don't know what the situation is with the world around us right now. We were hoping to get started back up in late June. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know at this point. But needless to say, she will not be involved. If your goal was to make your voice heard, you definitely did that. To make your presence felt, you definitely did that. And let's be honest, you did make a spot for yourself. Not that the spot wasn't there for you, and I know there's two differing opinions here between the company and your opinion. I totally get that. Unfortunately for everybody, for both parties, unfortunately that's how it is. But you definitely have carved out a spot for yourself now. I mean, you're definitely, and I wrote the column, has Kaitlyn Marie taken over the HVW women's division? And I know you read it, and I know we got some strong feedback from that, and I think it's a fair question that had to be asked, and I know that you feel like the answer is 100% yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even you guys announcing this women's tournament for the championship, I mean, the fact that you guys, after my showing, thought any of those girls on their own were capable of beating me is absolutely laughable.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the tournament because I was going to talk about that here. When we do come back to live action, we're going to run a special 2-night event. It's going to be a Friday and a Saturday. We're not sure when, folks, so just bear with us. But that Friday night is going to be an all-women's event. Every match We're even talking about lady referees. Actually, we want to do justice to the women's division. We want to put it on display. You are definitely going to be a part of this. There is no doubt about it. And it's the tournament. And the last two women standing at that night, at the end of the night that night, will go on to Saturday night's event and wrestle for the first ever HVW Women's Championship. It's an historic moment in our company. It's a title that we've never seen before. It's a nice looking title. I know it's something that you've had your eye on since the moment we announced it and before. There were rumors of us creating a championship, and I know that you were one of the people that was talking about it. I mean, this has got to be something that you feel like is, I guess, with for lack of a better term, is yours for the taking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the list of trash bags that you guys posted next to me as competition is clearly not. I mean, you have people like Ella Envy already beaten her, Casey Fox have already beaten her, Lindsay Pike and Sadie Lee Moss. I was in complete control of a match, a handicap match, as I will put it again, would have beaten them if not for the distraction. So if you think I have even the slightest sliver of concern, you guys are crazy. That championship is mine, will be mine, and if anybody gets in my way, I will not apologize for what I do to get them out.
You know, the match that we were leading to, which unfortunately is not going to happen, the event that was not going to happen now, that's going to have to be moved, Savannah Evans was going to be in the picture. I mean, what's your feelings on Savannah Evans? That, you know, she may not have the size factor working in her favor, but she's the veteran. She's tough as nails. What's your thoughts on Savannah Evans coming to HVW's women's division?
I mean, Savannah is obviously a competitor. Anybody who knows wrestling knows Savannah, and I'll give her credit where credit is due. I mean, me and her have even trained together, but at the end of the day, no one is bigger or badder than me. So she may be able to pull off her whole cannibal thing and scare other competitors. That's not me. If she's expecting me to cower back down because of her veteran status, she has me completely confused. I was looking forward to that match as I was looking for once and for all to shut everyone's mouth to show that I am the queen of the Carolinas, hands down. So if anything, Savannah Evans should consider herself lucky that she didn't have to step in the ring with me.
Well, I mean, you're definitely making a statement. I don't think any fan can question your toughness. I don't think any fan can question your ability. I would counter with this and only this, and you probably don't see it this way, but you know it's my job to play devil's advocate. I feel in some cases you are insanely talented, and you do have, like I said before, full command of the ring. Basically, when you're in the ring, you own it. I mean, you're one of those, and not every person can say that in our locker room. To be quite honest about it, you're one of those people that can say that when you step between the ropes, you own that ring. And considering all of that is the case, I guess I'm just questioning why someone with your amount of talent, with the presence that you have, why you would feel the need to, you know, for lack of a better term, cheap shot with a weapon, for goodness sake. I mean, I know I keep circling back to that, but it seems like maybe that's something that someone of your stature wouldn't even have to do in the first place. Was that more of a statement or anything else?
I felt HVW was giving me a fair opportunity. I knew with Hayden there, I was never going to be considered for anything. I mean, end of the day, you guys may use me for shows, but you guys weren't eyeing me. You guys were thinking of a championship, and you guys were thinking of Hayden. Hayden was your golden girl. Hayden was the one to do it all. So yeah, I absolutely took her out again because I needed to make my spot. If Hayden was there, Hayden would have gotten an opportunity. This tournament may have not even been a thing. It may have been Hayden against someone else. So yeah, I again did what I had to do to make sure that my name and that I was in the running for the championship that I absolutely deserve.
Well, I mean, in all due respect to Hayden, when I say this, Hayden wasn't exactly winning any popularity contests before you got there. And honestly, I think maybe she was your only ally, and maybe you were her only ally. But now that's gone. Did you stop to consider, if I do this, what are the ramifications of me doing this? I mean, that really takes out the only ally that you had.
I mean, an ally doesn't leave you in the ring to fend for yourself in what was supposed to be a tag match. If she was an ally, she would have handled business in the ring and had a conversation outside of it. She wouldn't have hobbled off and acted as fool and gone and stormed out of a match that could have shown how powerful we both were. Instead, she let me take the fall and walk to the back and act like she did nothing wrong. So she is not an ally of mine.
Well, I mean, the bridges have been burned now for sure, and Hayden has been fairly quiet on social media since all this happened. I have begun a dialogue with her, and it honestly, it took a long time. And you know her probably better than anybody in the company does. She's not exactly the someone to make idle chat, but you know, she finally reached out to me after 2 months of me kind of poking and prodding and trying to get her to talk to us. She finally has responded. She's definitely having surgery. She's ready to get it over with so she can start rehabbing. She's definitely planning on coming back. You are the only thing she's talking about. And I know you guys haven't spoken since this happened, obviously. And I mean, it's a very tense situation for everybody involved. I mean, how far down the road are you looking to this? Are you anticipating her return, or is she even on your radar right now?
I mean, she's not even on my radar. I have so many more things I plan on accomplishing within a year while she's sitting at home or paying to come and watch me. So she's not a concern. I'm not concerned of her now. I'm not going to be concerned when she comes back. At the end of the day, I know if it's down to me and Hayden in a ring, I would wipe that ring with her.
Well, like I said, you're definitely one of the toughest individuals in our locker room. There is no doubt about it. And I said that the moment you got in the ring. And I stick to that. I may not agree with your actions, but I don't necessarily have to agree with them. You are your own person, and I respect that. As I said before, I wish things didn't have to go that route, but you know, in the heat of the moment, decisions are made, and it's up to the people making those decisions whether or not they go through with certain things. So, as we start to wrap this up here, I have to ask you: you've made some pretty definitive statements during this show. I have to ask you though, do you have any statements to make, whether it's to the fans, to the company? I mean, what do you want to leave people with as we sign off here today?
At the end of the day, just watch out for me, because I'm here to stay. I'm here to continue making a statement, and I'm not going anywhere, and there's not anyone who can beat me. So you guys better get used to this pretty little face and continue spending your money to come see me, because I'm not going anywhere.
Well, it's very well said. I don't know if I can do any better than that. I mean, like I said, you've made your points. You're definitely full of confidence, and I have to respect that, despite what anyone says, what any fans or anyone else has to say about it. So I do respect that. Kaitlyn, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I hope that we can have you back again real soon. We want to wish you well out there as we're all trying to get through this mess and the world that's going on right now. We definitely look forward to seeing you in the ring again. And all the best to you and yours during this time. Thank you for being on.
You're welcome.
Folks, there you have it. That was Kaitlyn Marie. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We are still very active on social media. We are still doing everything necessary to sort of keep the brand, to keep the product out there, keep the company going. We hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. HVW Monday Retro takes place every Monday. We give you a classic throwback match to the first gen, the first phase of high velocity wrestling. You can take a stroll down memory lane. If you've never seen the content, this will be a new one for you. So we highly recommend you check that out. You can see Kaitlyn Marie. You can see all the stars of the women's division, all the stars of high velocity wrestling on our social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. So please go check it out. HighVelocityWrestling.com is the place you need to go if you're serious about watching high velocity wrestling and following the product, and we hope that you are. Folks, we want to tell you again that we do thank you for your support. Thanks for hanging in there during this time. We can't wait to get back in front of you. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we're going to talk to you again real soon, folks. Thanks again for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Stay tuned right here on the official High Velocity Wrestling Podcast.